it's a story. Probably didn't make, certainly not one of the more big stories, but I think it's important.
Yeah.
So MLB, Major League Baseball, recently decided to include the career statistics for the Negro League. Now,
Career statistics for the Negro League.
right.
Okay.
Now, at first glance, it sounds like, well, one, I was a little bit surprised because with all I know, I thought somehow they was involved in this, but I view this as a bigger deal. And so the significance of this is, so before we even talk about the significance of it, I think it's a great acknowledgement. This was during a time where the Negro League existed because of the segregation of the Major League Baseball, and this predates Jackie Robinson and him breaking the color line. I think a lot of folks know about Jackie and his story, but he too played in the Negro League, and so they included the stats of some 2,300 players, which I think is absolutely amazing. So kudos and shout outs to the players and their families and their descendants. I think it's great that they get the acknowledgement.
How are they keeping these stats? Like, where did they get these stats from? Because they weren't really together.
Well, I'm not sure all of it, but it's my understanding that so the Major League Baseball worked on this for about 3 years. So behind the scenes, they were putting this information and getting all this information, collecting it all. But so here's the sub story to this, which I thought was really interesting, is with the inclusion of the stats from players, it changes the dynamic of the order and who is considered the best player. Right. So if I ask 10 people who the best player in the history of baseball is, 9 out of 10 would probably say Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if you include the stats from the Negro League, now you're bringing in Josh Gibson. So Josh Gibson, now all of a sudden, just off the top of my head, had more home runs, had a higher slug percentage, had a higher on-base percentage, had a higher career average than Ty Cobb, which means now he's in first place. And so I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, this is more than just, to me, baseball. This is like American history.
Yeah,
Since 1935, when the last game that Babe Ruth played, he has been the face and considered the greatest baseball player from America's original pastime. And now all of a sudden, it is based on the numbers, this black man from Georgia now is considered the greatest player in the history of the sport. So I guess my question is this real history, a moment in history, or is this me just geeking out, being a sports head, and there's really nothing to see here?
You're geeking out a little bit.
Think I'm geeking out a little bit?
That's fine, though. You're a little geeking in some ways. That's fine. It's cool. It's all right. I love you for that, man. It's all good. But what I'm thinking about is, and you always tell me, life isn't fair, right? I love what they're doing, obviously, for us.
Right.
Proud people, so it's good, right? Including, obviously, black people, and now they're included. But listen, I know you always say life isn't fair, and I know it's not fair, but I don't think this is fair.
Fair to
the people who already had their records in Major League Baseball.
Oh, you're killing me, Jay.
No, it's not.
You're killing me,
because
Jay.
they were separate. All right, Josh didn't play. Jackie did, right? Because he went over to the Major League after some time. But Josh didn't. Am I correct? Josh,
you're right. 100%.
So Josh shouldn't be in there. That's separate. He's great, obviously. I'm not taking away that, but you got to keep them separate because they were separate.
So
they were.
So you combine. You combine.
I don't
like
the combining.
Well, but I think there's some. It's a reach, but there's some precedence there, right? There were 2 football leagues they combined, and they combined the stats. Before the NFL, there was the AFL, right?
NFL,
they combined.
Right.
There was the NBA and ABA. They combined those, right? And they brought in those stats. Now, the Negro League and the major leagues were never combined,
No.
right? But it was still, I think it was because it was done during a time where the black players didn't, they were refused. They could not play. They couldn't play. They didn't have a choice. So I think there's that piece of it. And here's another reason I'll push back. I often got into arguments with people when we talk about the greatest baseball player, and people would say Babe Ruth. And I would always scoff at that, which got people ticked off. And I'm saying, how can you be the greatest, considered to be the greatest player, when you couldn't play amongst the greatest players? Just look at today's time through the lens of yesteryear.
Yeah.
Today's best player in baseball is Shahani. He's Asian, which means if he played back then, he wouldn't even be in the major league, just like black players. So you cannot tell me that you have a league where it's not open to everyone, which means you can get the best players and then anoint this person as the best player. Stop it. Stop the madness. I'm not going for that.
But that's all subjective, though. The best player. It's all subjective.
No, it's based off. It's not subjective because it's based off.
Just numbers don't mean being. If you say someone is the best player, that's not based off of numbers.
Yeah, it is. It's based off statistics. That's what it is. He had at the time the most career home runs forever until they were beaten by Bonds.
So if you go by numbers, you'll say Floyd Mayweather was the best boxer in the world of all time. Is that would you say that? I don't know. Would you?
Listen, at one point he was considered the best.
I'm not considered. I'm asking you. I'm just asking you a question. Do you think? Would you say that Floyd Mayweather is the best boxer of all time?
Off the top of my head, I would say he's up there. I think it's a little caught off guard. I'm trying to run through some of the.
But I'm asking you that question.
Well, yeah, because he's undefeated.
Right. From what you were saying, what you're telling me, you're saying things best is based off of stats and numbers. Apparently, that's what I'm getting.
Well, listen, that has a lot to do with it. It's a measurable that you have to consider. It's not everything, but damn if it ain't something.
Well, that's what I was trying to tell you.
Right. Well, in this case, Josh Gibson is considered, listen, no disrespect, but if you got a league of all brothers, there's some athletes in there, right? Okay. And if you are the best brother of all brothers, I think it's fair to say that you're a pretty damn good player.
Wait, why you say that because of all brothers? You ain't being like
the Negro League was Negro.
I know, but what are you trying to sound like Jimmy the Greek now?
What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. You're talking about because of all brothers. I mean, but maybe I'm missing something. What are you trying to say?
No, you're not.
So explain to me.
You're not missing anything. You want to be difficult.
No, right? I don't know what you meant when you said that.
That black folks, by and large, are athletic AF.
You're sounding like Jimmy the Greek, and he got into a lot of shit for that. I'm just saying he did. Well, he basically said that black people were bred for this, and they had an advantage over others because they were bred for this. He's faced a lot of shit.
He didn't say they had an advantage.
He said they were bred for this.
Hold on. He did not say they had an advantage.
I didn't.
Excuse me? Hold on. He did not. You said they had an advantage because they were bred for this. And I'm saying they didn't have an advantage because they were bred for this. Mm-hmm. They had an advantage because that's from God. That's just the way it is. That is basketball. That is football. That was baseball when black players were in the baseball ranks. Mm-hmm. They were in boxing. Mm-hmm. Like, I ain't making this stuff up. Track and field. There's certain athletic areas where, as a race, black people, like, it may not be popular. Maybe it's politically or PC.
Yeah, nobody wants it. White people get in trouble for saying exactly what you're saying.
Right, but it's not because it's not true, though.
And I'm all.
And when Jimmy the Greek, this is why I'm interested. I'm tripping at you even pushing back. But when Jimmy the Greek said it, he was criticized for saying it. But nary a person could come out and say that it wasn't true.
Of course not.
This country had a history of breeding black folks when we were enslaved. Mm-hmm. As he said, and I don't quote all of it, but he'd get that big black buck, right? And put her with that woman, and they would create big kids, right? Like that. So when he said that, black folks were like, yeah, well, that's what slave masters did. Right. These were generally other folks that were up in arms about the fact that he said it, but it wasn't like it wasn't true. All right, so what?
Well, lots of people say things that are true, but they get in trouble for saying it.
Right.
Which I love the truth.
Absolutely,
Truth is great.
Absolutely. So going back to the point where if I were to look at, say, a player that was in a league where that was closed to other races and other folks, it would be difficult for me to then turn around and say he was the best ever when you weren't able to play against other people. You were the best in that league, but now when you start comparing against other folks, it's just, to me, there's an asterisk. There isn't, but there should be an asterisk there until color lines, racial lines were broken and other players can be involved. This is why, to me, I think this is such a big deal.
Right.
A bigger story than just maybe a footnote, that it changes, right? Like, he is iconic. We've literally changed an icon and said, nah, not him anymore. This is the real guy. I don't think folks will do it. I don't think folks will do it, but the numbers do not lie. And I'm glad to see Major League Baseball. I'm glad that they did.
Yeah, that's big.
I'm glad they did.
That
Listen,
is big.
Josh Gibson's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the Hall of Fame for playing baseball. Add those numbers in. I think it's great. I think it was a huge move. I didn't think I would ever see it in my lifetime. But I think it's dope, man.
I'm glad they did it in Major League. Props to them and everything. And again, by the end of the day, whoever's the best and whatever, it's a personal decision. It's, they're subjected to it, whatever. But they're all great, and whoever people feel is the best in their own decision.
Yeah, no, it's still, listen, this will not stop the arguments in barbershops all across the world, right?
Who's the best in any sport. I'm always like, who's the best this, who's the best that. We need that. We need that.
If anything, it's going to be more arguing.
Exactly.
Right? Something else.